This is Dolany TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today. Hockey is back, my friends. It feels great. The Oilers unbeaten in the cumulative 2022-2023 season. And how fine and dandy is that to say after how things ended with 4 straight losses to end things last season. So now we're all of a sudden rocking a totally unbeaten streak, and that is one heck of a way to start a productive, hopeful Stanley Cup final season, let me tell you. But my friends, right now we got to talk about how we're going to get there, and a big part of how we're going to get there is happening this weekend in Penticton, whether it be right out of the gate to start the season or whether it be down the line later on. In terms of Dylan Holloway, Xavier Bourgault, and of course, yes indeed, Mr. Philip Broberg, who's wearing not the C, he's wearing the A, and we might have to have a little discussion on James Hamblin at some point during the preseason as well. A guy that very much so looks like he could be a key figure for the Oilers' depth in case of injury on the fourth line at some point this season. So that's where we find ourselves, folks. We're one game deep. The Oilers' big studs that they sent to these games looked good. I was able to watch about a period and a half of hockey last night. You saw the post first period review, and you got some of my thoughts there. But I think, you know what, end of the day, everything else I've read from it was absolutely night and day positive. So that's huge for us Oilers fans to see that, you know what, game one, right, you're sending what I call the star-studded roster out there to Penticton, and it delivered. The star-studded roster did not disappoint. Yeah, okay, it's not the big showy victory you thought it was going to be, but it's still a very solid, good win. The goaltending was fine. The defense was pretty good. The offense looked phenomenal. That top line was next level, but that is in correlation with three guys that we're really going to count on down the stretch this season. So folks, if you're new to the channel right now, I've kind of tried to actually keep it on topic for Oilers stuff today instead of how I've started the past few. So if you're new to the channel, what I want you to do is consider hitting that subscribe button. I think we're sitting at 8758 as I record this, and the all-time high for subscribers on Dolany TV is 8782. So do the math. We are 24 off that number, and I know there's plenty of folks that went their separate ways after I posted the goodbye, good done video at the end of 2021 there. So why not, if you're coming back around, let's get ready for a good hockey season and see what we can do here. But that said, back to the guys that we're talking about today. In Holloway, Broberg, Bourgault. Those guys are key pieces for the Oilers. You can't deny it. Why? Simply because Broberg is going to more than likely slot in as your 3LD this season, and adding all that muscle, and quite seriously, he's the guy I want to touch on first because I know I was critical of him after the first period, just saying he didn't really look like the best player out there, and then everything afterwards, the glowing reviews after the game kind of showed him to be the best player. So hey, that's fine. You know what? One period does not dictate 60 minutes. You can have a rough first period and have one hell of a game. So for Philip Broberg, in my eyes, rough first period. Must have had a really good game after that, and it wasn't really that rough. It was just he was the only one that you could really nitpick anything because of how high the expectations are. And that's the big word of this video, the expectations. For Broberg is we're going to see hopefully that kind of coming out party Bouchard had in the shortened 2021 season, and hopefully if that allows him to come out of his shell a little bit, does Broberg, then that could be a huge get for the Oilers defense down the stretch, especially as he evolves. Right, you're going to have growing pains. He's going to be a rookie D-man, and by the looks of the depth chart, he's going to be playing with Tyson Barrie. So that's a pair that's going to at times get exposed. But what you want to see now, and this is what's so critical about the preseason, is you want to see what Philip Broberg brings to the table in all facets of the game. And when you are the number one D-man on the ice in these young stars games, like Philip Broberg is, that is critical time to showcase your skills. And I think based on the glowing reviews after game one, phenomenal, right? Great way to start it, and hopefully it just continues tonight and against, of course, Vancouver later on. But then you go into the preseason and you hope to carry it over there too. But out of any of these three big guys, for Broberg, he is the one expected to make the impact the quickest. He is the one expected to be a huge part of this Oilers squad this year for mainstay chunks of it. Like a guy who should be playing 65 plus games if he's healthy. And, well, a guy that's totally capable. You don't draft a guy 8th overall in the NHL if you don't think he's totally capable of being that. Heck, after everything Griffin Reinhart showed in the New York Islanders system, Peter Chiarelli still thought he was capable of being the player he was picked to be, right? So just saying, when you get picked that high, there is the potential, and it's because of that potential you were picked that high. So for Broberg, the capability is definitely there if the potential is there. We've seen that, and hopefully we continue to see that here to start the season. Now you talk about Dylan Holloway, another big potential, another big guy who can go out there and do things. Like, man, Dylan Holloway is an animal on the ice. He's a perfect kind of forechecker, right? He goes in there, works hard, digs free pucks, steals pucks, and what I was really impressed with Dylan Holloway in that game is I think in the World Juniors 2 years ago, what we saw was a guy who gets in there and smacks the body and frees up the puck. He's hard to play against. He's that gritty little player who gets in your face and takes the puck away from you. But last night, he didn't have to necessarily do that to regain the puck. He was just a guy who was in the way. Not necessarily body to body, but the stick was in the right spot, strip, gone, and making that pass. And that's a really useful tool to have in the Oilers' bottom six right now, is a guy who is capable of being a multi-dimensional puck retriever, whether it be on the forecheck, whether it be in the defensive end, whether it be a strip in the neutral zone, and a guy who can shoot, because Dylan Holloway can shoot, but he can also make those assists happen as well. And especially if you're dishing the puck after a steal, you're more than likely going to end up with a couple more apples than you'd figure to if you can retrieve a couple more pucks that nobody thought you were going to get. So that's what I really liked out of Dylan Holloway. It wasn't always the physicality, but then all of a sudden a good, hard forecheck and top line first shift, or whatever you want to say, in the offensive zone. And suddenly Dylan Holloway, as the puck's exiting, is finishing a D-man and sticking with his guy on the back track to the offensive zone, simply because you're capable of making it back there. Dylan Holloway's got the speed, so he finishes the check, sets the tone early on, and really sets the table for what was a very successful game for Mr. Dylan Holloway. And a guy who, like I said, right, similar to Philip Broberg, is one of two guys out of these crop of three that is severely going to be counted on for mainstay parts of this season. Whether Dylan Holloway has to earn his way up to the Oilers recall, or if he is just going to bust camp and wreck up shop on a third line with Nugent Hopkins and whoever is on the right-hand side, right? There's a million and one ways the Oilers can still formulate that top 9, I guess you could say. Janmark could be up there with them. Who knows what you're rolling. But for the Oilers, is Dylan Holloway is a complicating factor up front, but also potentially a saving grace if you need to save cap and say, hey, I'm going to turf Warren Fogle and, hey, free up some cap space and potentially allow Dylan Holloway to break out after a couple of injury-plagued seasons. So that's the really exciting part there for the Oilers, is the fact that, yeah, Dylan Holloway is a guy that could come in and really complicate matters for the Oilers in a good, positive light. Finally, right? You've got back to back first round picks severely complicating matters. You have currently in the Oilers system and all the way currently on the Oilers roster potentially first round picks from 2015 all the way, and I don't know who the 2014 first round pick was. Tyson's brain's not working. We'll get back to that, folks. Let me Google that. But I'll continue the thought either way. Right, you have picks all the way from 2015 to potentially 2019 in the Edmonton Oilers lineup. First round picks, right? That's what you potentially have in the Oilers lineup this season if you have McDavid, Puljujarvi, Yamamoto, Bouchard. The light just went out. That's a new addition to the old Dolany TV set, is that light just for some reason is all wonky. Yeah, you have Leon Draisaitl. So you got Leon Draisaitl, you got Darnell Nurse. So all the way from 2013 to potentially, if Mr. Dylan Holloway can make it, 2020. That is, what, 8 players in your lineup that you have drafted in the first round, my friends, in the first round of the NHL entry draft, dating back to 2013. Everything post Nail Yakupov has been a success for the Oilers. You can say what you want about Yamamoto, you can say what you want about Puljujarvi, and you can most definitely say what you want about Darnell Nurse. But at the end of the day, every single one of these players is an impact player in the Oilers roster. And if both Broberg and Holloway can bust camp and be impact players, that is some level. And that's not necessarily all Peter Chiarelli either. You can't credit Peter Chiarelli. You can't credit Craig McTavish. It is a mind trust of everybody that's been in and out of the doors of the Edmonton Oilers organization since 2013 that has put together one of, if not the longest streaks of drafting in the first round to build a competitive Stanley Cup winning roster that you have in 2022. That is mind-numbing right there, and mind-blowing, that is for sure, to think about that one. So, a quick touch on Xavier Bourgault, who I believe could be an impact player for the Oilers, whether it be busting camp, getting a couple minimum games in and seeing what happens, or he could just simply be that guy that comes up mid-season, Kailer Yamamoto style, and makes an impact down the stretch. And that's the exciting part here, is the Oilers just need to figure out the roster now, and then after that, it all is on easy street. Whatever they want to do after they make some cap space up here, they can make a lot happen, and they've got a lot of dang good choices. And oh, by the way, that'd be 13 all the way to 21 if Xavier Bourgault and everybody else is in the lineup, and that's just nuts. All right, that's just nuts. But I got to touch, and this is where I said we'd touch about James Hamblin as well. Simply put, James Hamblin has been phenomenal for the Oilers organization. One heck of a pickup by Keith Gretzky way back during the early days of the postponed season, canceled season, because my friends, what a move by him to get a guy who now is the captain of your Young Stars tournament roster ahead of a guy like Philip Broberg, right? This is a guy that the Oilers signed to an NHL entry-level deal and believe in enough to be the leader for guys like Broberg, Holloway, Bourgault, Angara, Warner, right? There's a million and one guys, Fanti, Rodrigue, right? This is the guy, Hamblin, that was chosen. And he is such a complimentary player to guys who have the skill and ability that Holloway and a guy like Bourgault have, simply because he's got the puck scoring ability, he's got the drive to the net, he's got everything you want a perfect depth role player on your team to have, does James Hamblin. They don't call him the Hammer because he is the most prettiest, flashiest player to watch. He has that razzle-dazzle in his game, just like any other NHLer does if he's against the right competition. But what we're talking about is the Hammer. He's a guy that gets the job done, and that is the beautiful part about James Hamblin, and that is what really made, in my opinion, Bourgault and Holloway pop out so much last night, is having that complimentary number 57 down the middle wearing the C on the top line, getting in there. And he scored a big goal for the Oilers squad last night too, I remind you. So there's that to it as well for Mr. James Hamblin. But again, Xavier Bourgault, we have to wait and see and let him develop along, just like we have Holloway and Broberg. But when it comes down to it, that's the big three. And James Hamblin, I have to just throw in as much content there as possible, because I really believe this kid could be an impact player for us, right? He could be, quite honestly, everything everyone believed Tyler Benson would already be for us right now. I mean, they're pretty much the same age, if I'm not mistaken, but you get where I'm going, is let's build some excitement for some of our more veteran guys coming up the Young Stars pipe, because my goodness, guys, we got some good guys on the roster, and you know what? It's about dang time the Oilers reward the good guys on the roster for being good guys who are good at hockey. Folks, I'm Tyson. This is Stolany TV. Can we make this 15 minutes long? I think we can. Let's go for it. All right, one last touch. Max Warner, he looked phenomenal too. Big guy, quite honestly. And he looks like he has some upside that the Oilers really like. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing. I don't think he's going to be the best looking player out there on the ice at any point for the Oilers in the Young Stars tournament. But just watch 1, 2, and 3. Game 1, 2, and 3. How he develops and how he ranges his game from there. It could be phenomenal to see what he becomes by the end of this rookie camp. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be at main camp for us. That's almost for certain. He'll be in Moose Jaw this season, but he will be in main camp if he impresses games 2 tonight against the Calgary Flames at 8:30 and game 3 against the Vancouver Canucks coming up shortly. So folks, I'm Tyson, this is Stolny TV. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, I have just laid it all out on the table for you, what I think, what I am, and who I am. You see the set, you see the room, it is what it is, it all comes together, and we talk Oilers down here daily. I'm Tyson, Dolany TV, as I mentioned, up on out of here.